You are now entering the realm of the Freaky Deaky, an unsuspecting stop at the crossroads of fantasy and reality, where the frayed edges of make-believe seep into this cookie-cutter white picket world you've been led to believe is far from extraordinary. What you're about to hear are true stories.
Alleged true stories.
Christian, just... okay? Tales of the strange and inexplicable thought only to exist in film and folklore. Although difficult to accept, we do not know everything about this reality, about time or space, what lies beneath the ocean's depths. And try though we might, the unchanging truth remains. There are some things we legitimately cannot explain logically. Oh, hey there. Yeah, didn't see you guys there. Welcome back to the Freaky Deaky. This is going to be a fun one. Sorry for talking about lizard people for a few minutes to jumpstart this, but you know how things go here in the Freaky Deaky. Today we are going to be discussing Bob Lazar and some of his, are they considered out there claims? I wouldn't say they are. I think
Fake.
Factual, 100% real claims
Fake.
from Bob Lazar.
This is one time. I'm 100% on Scott's side.
Yeah, it does happen.
I'm no middle ground. We are against Christian on this one.
Yeah.
You know, it's funny. I call myself a skeptic, but I'm more skeptical normally. Like every time we talk about a subject, I'm basically like skeptical.
Yeah.
This
Are
time,
you though? You always seem so on board with it.
That's, like there's a possibility some of these things could happen. This time, I think I'm going straight up skeptic. Just to prepare you guys.
Okay. Well, this is the same man that was defending lizard people's honor not 3 minutes ago. So, keep that with a grain of salt. Don't keep it there, but
I
take
was
it
not.
with...
I don't care about lizard people. Reptilians.
That's right. See, I keep forgetting.
Lizard people don't get any rights.
That's right.
They're lizards.
Yeah. You're going to regret that. You're going to have an apology statement in about 10 years when the lizard people have all the rights. So,
and they're going to be like, we actually find reptilian really offensive and we like to be called lizard people. So,
because we are people.
How dare you, Christian?
And I'll be like, I aligned myself with the reptilians a long time ago. That's why I'm in a position of power. Off with your heads.
Well, there you
or
go.
Tails.
Done. I
Yeah,
think we need to go forward with Bob Lazar now.
Yeah, I definitely need to shut up about this.
If you had a bleak outlook on the future of this world, don't worry. Christian just laid out the plan, and it seems pretty foolproof and, kind of peaceful, right?
Off with their heads.
So, yeah, anyway, Bob Lazar, hot button topic, on and off over the years. So let's dive right into it. There is an indefinable, mysterious power that pervades everything. I feel it, though I do not see it. That is an excerpt from Living Power by Mahatma Gandhi, Young India, 11/10/1928.
That is an
November 10th.
amazing quote.
I love it. I really do.
Is.
When we're talking about all these energies and different things and portals and higher beings, I just feel like this quote fits perfect because you can feel it, don't have to see it. And that's where I think we always are against Christian. You don't have to see everything to know it's real.
Sometimes
But if you
like
really
the accounts of one Robert Lazar.
Yeah.
If you really listen deep down at what I'm saying is, you can still feel it if you don't see it. And that's where it gets hard to tell what is real at that level. That's where the work is trying to figure out, that stuff you feel, because it is there. And that's more important than the stuff you see.
Yeah.
But what part of that is real? And that's where it's like, I see why people see the things they do. I'm not sure it's actually there or not. And that's what I want to know. Is there something there when it's paranormal?
Well, if you really want to know, then when I tell you yes, there you go. You know now.
My brain
You're
doesn't
welcome.
work that way,
Christian,
though.
you're
It's like
welcome.
someone just told me yes. I
We
can't
need
trust them.
proof. I have to see it. Some people are just that way.
Christian
My husband's
is-
that way.
yeah.
He's like, I won't. He's like, yeah, I think it's cool hearing about Bigfoot. Like, cool idea, cool thought.
Yeah.
If I don't see it, proof, I'm not going to believe it. He's just a scientific person. So I always tell him stuff. And every time he looks at me with like this stupid smirk, and I'm always like, cool story.
Yeah.
I like the story. It entertained me. But
Christian is so stubborn that we actually had to make a podcast to try to convince him of anything. Like, so if this doesn't work, I'm fresh out of ideas, man. You live in your little sheltered world. Don't believe in clearly lizard people or, any other strangeness that's out there, Bigfoot, the whole nine.
Sometimes I'm just here to provide a different perspective that is very important when looking into subjects like this.
Yes.
It's to look at it from a more of a scientific view or a rational or, just a simple view. But that's an important way of looking at it. Whenever even if you believe in stuff or you've seen stuff, there should be a part of your mind that questions the whole time.
Yeah.
And that makes you filter out some of the stuff that is ridiculous once you start doing that. And then you start focusing on the big questions, the things that really matter. Does it really matter if there's a flat earth?
Yes.
No. I mean, we'd still, but
but
so
there
you
isn't,
throw
for the
out
record,
stuff
there
like
isn't.
that.
There
Or-
isn't a flat earth. Can we all acknowledge
I've
this?
seen
Yeah.
pictures of it. So in some dimension, it might exist.
Well, we're not talking dimension jumping. We're talking in general. I'm sorry.
Speaking of dimension
is a
jumping,
sphere.
let's jump back into the Bob Lazar.
Yeah, let's
dimension.
head back
I
to...
will shut
Reel
up
it
for a
back
little bit.
in.
I'll shut up for a little bit.
Take
Yeah.
a few steps back.
This is what happens. Okay. Yeah. Anyway, into Bob Lazar in our current time and dimension. Robert Scott Lazar is an American conspiracy theorist who claims to have been hired in the late 1980s to reverse engineer extraterrestrial technology at what he described as a secret site called S4. Lazar alleges that this subsidiary installation is located several kilometers south of the United States Air Force facility popularly known as Area 51. Have you guys ever heard of Area 51?
Yes.
Never knew.
Yay!
I have a question, though, and
Yeah,
I know I said
already?
I'd shut up.
Already, we're one paragraph in. Please, Christian.
But Scott,
Yes.
do you think it's a coincidence his middle name is your name?
His first two names are my dad's name.
Yeah.
Dun-na-na-na-na.
That
Oh,
almost
I
should
didn't
be,
know that.
and that's
Yeah.
freaky deaky.
Yeah. What? Dad?
Okay, I'll
No.
try. I'll try to shut up again.
Okay. Thanks for that. Lazar claim. I actually did think of that when I read that too. I'm like, Robert Scott, that's my dad. Don't go atting my dad, okay?
I wasn't.
No.
I was atting you.
No,
So
I was,
is
I was
that really
talking to
your
the
dad's
listening
Robert
public.
Scott?
Yeah.
So, I mean, if you wanted to carry on your kid's name, people would be like, you named your kid after Bob Lazar? You're like, no, it's actually after my dad. But
Can it be both?
well, you could put it both ways. You're like, actually, deep down, I did
Yeah.
name it after Bob
My
Lazar.
dad would love that. He'd be like, I appreciate that. I'm like, well, Dad, hold on a second there. It's 50-50 here, pal. It's you and Bob Lazar. So,
Right.
You're
You're like,
your
he got the
privilege.
Scott from you, and he got the Bob for old Bob.
Yeah.
Or
Yeah.
it's just a coincidence.
Yeah. Let's call it that.
Sorry, China. We're just naming your unborn,
Yeah. No, she's already done
uncreated
that.
kid right now.
Yeah. Okay, so Lazar claims he examined an alien craft that ran on an antimatter reactor powered by element 115, which at the time had not yet been synthesized. He also claims to have read U.S. government briefing documents that described alien involvement in human affairs over the past 10,000 years. Lazar's claims resulted in bringing added public attention to Area 51 and fueling conspiracy theories surrounding its classified activities. Hold up a sec. 10,000 years? Is that like what? Huh?
Did you type that wrong?
Yeah, that has to
It
be some kind
could've.
of, right?
Let me pull it back.
Because I'm like,
Can I
how
mess
the
with our
fuck-
audio?
No, I'll leave it in. 10,000.
Oh no! You know what? That's right.
Really? I've never heard that. 10,000?
Yeah.
What,
I mean,
like
that's
how?
the whole. Okay, here we go again.
Yes.
I mean, it's on the
Ancient-
site that I pulled this from.
Yeah, ancient aliens.
Yeah.
Why do we keep coming back to that show? But that is the ancient alien theory. So you've heard of it before. You just haven't.
I've never heard it with the Bob Lazar thing. I've never
But
heard him talking about 10,000 years ever.
Well, I guess that's what the aliens he saw told or passed down upon us, or they have proof that shows that they've affected us. Maybe he's a believer that they changed our DNA.
Yeah, I'm just saying I've watched a lot of Bob Lazar stuff, and I've never heard him mention any kind of timetable,
Well,
10,000 years. I've always just heard him
don't
mention.
hold this take it with a grain of salt. This is pulled
I
from the
think
old
it sounds-
Wikipedia,
yeah.
but
That
I
sounds
just pulled
right
the
to
site
me.
up, and that's what it still says.
And it could
says
be, like-
10,000.
Like, look, there's a possibility that I, didn't hear it or didn't catch it over the years, but like that's just fresh, interesting information for me.
Well,
to
and I think-
digest.
Wait till you pull up Wikipedia and see it was edited by me.
Yeah. Edited
I
on.
fudged it. No,
No,
I wanted to get in Scott's brain over here and bug him.
but that makes a lot of sense because there are a lot of people that believe aliens had connections to our ancient past. And
Yeah.
but it's really also hard for us to view back 10,000 humans 10,000 years ago.
Yeah.
Because our acceptance of time is more just 3, 4, 5,000 years ago. It's hard to imagine anything beyond that because it's such a long time.
Yeah.
But we're talking about there being humans 100,000 years ago or something pretty close to us. So it's not, I don't know what kind of rant I was going on, but that doesn't seem like a crazy
It felt
time.
nice. Yeah.
I'll shut up again.
Welcome back to the Freaky Deaky, and here's Bob Lazar. Yeah, as soon as I read 10,000 Years, I kept going because I like my OCD was like finish the paragraph, but I knew as soon as I finished it, I was like 10,000 years. What? Yeah. Welcome to a glimpse of my life. Okay, Lazar's story has since been analyzed and rejected by skeptics and Christian and some ufologists. Universities from which he claims to hold degrees show no record of him, and supposed former workplaces have disavowed him. In 1990, he was convicted for his involvement in a prostitution ring, and again in 2006 for selling illegal chemicals.
I found that part interesting. I was like, man, here's a doozy. A guy just coming out with some
That's
claims about working, reverse it. You know what I did? I reverse engineer spacecraft, and then bam, he's got some prostitutes going on here. Like, interesting dude.
That's a man that doesn't care about the rules and is smart as hell.
Yeah.
So he can do whatever he wants, and then he doesn't give a shit about any of the repercussions, any of that stuff. Like, to him, it was probably a joke and hilarious. I don't know.
Or he's a criminal.
Or he's a badass Christian. Why can't you view it from that perspective?
He could be.
Yeah, I think he is, low-key.
Low-key nerd badass.
There's a few.
He's just one of those nerds that grew up and got lucky.
Are we going back? Are we talking about the prostitution ring?
Yeah.
Yeah, every once in a while. It does happen. Stay true. Stay true, nerds.
And then here's a breakdown of his background. He attended Pierce Junior College in Los Angeles, filed bankruptcy in 1986, where he described himself as a self-employed film processor. Lazar owns and operates United Nuclear Scientific Equipment and Supplies, which sells a variety of materials and chemicals. He's claimed to have attended MIT. Lazar alleges he worked at Los Alamos, where he experimented with the world's largest particle beam accelerators prior to working with the government at S4.
Those accomplishments sound impressive.
And before we dive into what Christian's about to say, what brought...
Before Christian tries to derail this again.
So what brought light to Lazar's story was actually George Knapp pulling him to come in and talk and tell his story. And the whole reason Lazar said he even came out wasn't to bring his own fame, to get his name out there, but that he feared for his life. So he had a few run-ins with working at S4. The government was telling him, you be quiet or we'll do something to you or your wife. And so he feared his life at the time. He thought coming out would keep him protected.
It's a smart move, coming to the spotlight.
Yeah, Knapp really pushed for him to tell his story.
Way to go, George Knapp.
So, old George Knapp.
This episode's MVP, George Knapp.
He is. He really is.
We give awards to people on episodes now. No, I'm just kidding. Change
George Knapp, if you're listening to us.
Here's your little nappy.
You're the real MVP.
Yeah, the first annual nappy.
That's right. That sounds like it could be taken the wrong way.
And Knapp, any of you have watched the documentary on him or have heard him discuss Lazar, he 100% backs him up. He believes this guy is telling the truth.
Yeah.
And is trying to share the story to help Bob. And taking it away with Knapp's findings will be Christian.
Ooh, I wasn't prepared, but I am now.
I'll give you
Shut
a
up, Christian, your time's coming up. Don't take ours. Hijacking everything today. I'm sorry.
It's okay. You're forgiven.
All right. Knapp's findings. George.
You took so long to get started on that. Then you said George, and then you're like, oh, messed it up. Please. Sorry. Okay, so this
George.
So this is George Knapp talking, or just talking.
I wrote this episode so long ago. I don't even.
It has been a while. Yeah, it's not fresh, but it's fresh because this is great. Now we're actually touching on the subject again, and we get to relive it and re-experience the whole thing. So it actually works out.
I think in this section, I'm sorry, folks. This is the jottings of my brain. I just bulleted really fast, kind of submerged it into one group. And I'm going to let Christian take it away and nail it. So
yeah, and try his best. Go for it.
I think it's written perfectly fine. I just don't think my brain is
well, you should like give a little more spacing in between.
Okay, here we go.
Get all that finger rubbing, hand rubbing out. Just do it.
You're really working up to this. Okay.
George?
You can do it. Here we go. Let's go. 1, 2. No. We'll get there.
We even gave you the easy name this time. You nailed some like Russian names.
Yeah.
And then you get George Knapp.
Yeah.
It's like you're taking a nap. There is a K and another N, in there. And
here's the funny thing.
Extra P, but
I've listened to George Knapp for years, so this is like
this should be in the back of your mind.
Coast to Coast and
I just don't know where, like...
Just forget you read the word George now.
You can even skim it and put it in your own words.
Okay. Couple snippets from George Knapp.
There you go.
That's
a way to phrase it.
And that's also the way I need to think about it. Los Alamos officials say they had no records of him ever working there. They were either mistaken or were lying. A 1982 phone book from the lab lists Lazar right there among the other scientists and technicians. News section shows the cover of Los Alamos National Laboratory phone directory, and then a list of names which includes Lazar Robert. Los Alamos Monitor article 1982 is shown the date reading Sunday, June...
Two times,
with low resolution, 1982, with the title, LA Man Joins the Jet Set at 200 miles an hour, with a picture of a man with the car with Knapp saying that it profiles Lazar and his interest in jet cars. It zooms in on the clipping to an excerpt which states, it's not the car so much that's important. To Lazar, a physicist at Los Alamos Mason Physics.
Are you speaking English right now?
Do you even talk, bro?
Mason?
To Lazar, a physicist at the Los Alamos Mason Physics facility, the important thing is the jet engine. It's something he's been working on for years. It started a while ago when working with another researcher in NASA on the technology. We called Los Alamos again. An exasperated official told us he still has no records of Lazar. EG&G, which is where Lazar says he was interviewed for the job at S4, also has no record. The news section cuts to Lazar, who claims he's called the schools he attended, the hospital he was born in, and his past job to get records, but to no avail. Lazar alleges his employer at S4 was the U.S. Navy.
Interesting. So why would they be saying that Lazar didn't work there? What would the big cover-up be?
Because they didn't want the information out.
Or he didn't work there.
But what about the people that, the employees there that were like, I worked with Bob?
Yeah.
And the fact that Lazar Robert was in the actual book.
He could have been... I thought I've heard that he was a contractor. So technically he might not have worked at these companies, but he could have still been in the facility working close enough to them to where there's like plausible deniability.
Yeah.
Or he either that or he is building up his position.
So what about Mike Thigpen? He confirms working and remembering Bob Lazar and working with him at S4. Is this guy just going along with this dude? Like, hey, I'm going to back your story up. Sure, I'll say I worked with you there.
He's I was there too.
And that's what I'm saying. He might have worked there, but he might not have been employed by the company, so they could plausibly say, nope, he wasn't here.
So what you're saying is...
He could be contracted through another company to the U.S. Navy.
What you're saying is his story is accurate, but his employer just didn't like him and just deciding to say...
Fudged a few of the details.
Yeah.
There's a possibility his employers could be lying, is what I'm saying. I'm not supporting it, or I'm just saying that is something I'm sure we're going to be going through a lot, is are we being lied to? And there's a possibility it's the U.S. government.
Well, here's the thing. Every time the question is, are we being lied to by the U.S. government? Most of the time, it's yes.
Yeah.
But we're not always right about what we're being lied to. In this case.
Yeah. Sometimes, blurred lines, Robin Thicke, but,
it would be within...
Yes.
It would benefit the U.S. government if Lazar is telling the truth to deny everything and to erase him from existence.
Exactly, which is what they were doing.
Yeah.
And none of this, my favorite part about this entire story is I would say, sure, this guy, cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs, if he was so famous, he had tons of money, he was living his best life. This guy has gained nothing from this. If anything, it's ruined his life. He comes back now and he's like, I wish I didn't say it.
Yeah.
So what's that, ruining your name, ruining your whole life?
Unless he's like a narcissist, then he's enjoying this notoriety, not really gaining anything financially, but maybe he's a bad person.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying in this case, just because I don't really like the guy or believe him, that he's a bad person.
You're just trying to poison the minds of our listeners to believe that maybe he's a bad person. I get what you're doing, Christian.
No, I'm saying that we have to realize that he could be lying to us.
Yeah. And that goes with literally any person you talk to in your entire life. They could be lying to you.
Oh, yeah, we never know.
And there's a possibility why he doesn't really need to gain financial success from this story. If you take it up another level in the conspiracy, is that the government's paying him to lie to us to muddy the waters, which makes a lot of sense too. That's if I had somebody like that and I was in the government trying to keep secrets hidden from our enemies, that would be a perfect way to do it.
That would be a perfect way to do it. So shall I read off some of these criminal convictions? Get to some of the juicy hot goss that we've all been
yes,
waiting for.
Let's see how you do this.
Man, I got a voice smooth as butter, man. I can get through anything. I haven't read this. Watch me nail it.
But is it going to be hard to talk about criminal convictions to somebody you look up to?
Who do I look up to?
Bob Lazar.
I don't think Scott looks up to him. I just think he believes him.
Yeah, I hear the convictions of an honest man, and I stand behind them.
Okay.
In 1990, Lazar was arrested for aiding and abetting a prostitution ring. This was reduced to felony pandering, to which he pleaded guilty. He was ordered to do 150 hours of community service, stay away from brothels. That's okay, Bob. No, you got to work in the community, and you can't go to any brothels, right? What's your favorite? And undergo psychotherapy.
That's ridiculous.
Oh, everyone's just talking on how bad he was for having a prostitution ring. Maybe he was just helping employ all the single moms. Jeez, he's helping people out. Come on, giving all the girls a job.
I can't believe he had to do 150 hours of community service for visiting a prostitute. That is like...
That's days you got to think about that.
I know. I'm like, that is... Okay, U.S. government, you're being ridiculous. Because that's like, who cares?
Yeah.
How many people get away with having a prostitute?
Yeah, but I'm like, okay, whatever. Why do I?
Yeah.
Do I think
But it got brought into light, I think, to make the guy sound bad.
You're right.
Go against
That's
the
what I'm
story
saying,
again.
yeah.
The media.
I'm supporting Lazar in the. That's ridiculous, right there.
Poor
I'll
dude
support
was just
him
having
there.
a rough moment, wanted to have a little fun.
Yeah, it's a power to the people moment.
He should not be arrested for that.
Oh,
begin
absolutely,
with.
yeah. That just shows how badly they wanted to punish this man.
Yeah.
Like that's it's excessive.
It builds to his story.
Did he get arrested in Vegas? Because like that's the whole point of going there for a lot of people. Like the cops look the other way all the time in Vegas for that.
I know when
until you piss them off.
Yeah, when my family and I were traveling to Vegas, it was always, I can't wait to get and see those prostitutes. Am I right, Mom? You know,
I just think of Zach Galifianakis in The Hangover. You know, us guys running around the desert looking for strippers and cocaine.
But being in Vegas, there's billboards that basically advertise.
Pretty much.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that bus that goes up and down the strip with all the chicks on the side. Like, call this number.
And they're going to arrest him for that in that region if that's where he's at. I'm like, okay.
And the Playboy Bunny Club and all the different.
It's just not adding up.
No,
not at all.
Okay. In 2006, Lazar and his wife, Joy White, were charged with violating the smooth as butter, Federal Hazardous Substances Act for shipping restricted chemicals across state lines. The charges stemmed from a 2003 raid on United Nuclear's business offices where chemical sales records were examined. United Nuclear pleaded guilty to 3 criminal counts of introducing into interstate commerce and aiding and abetting the introduction into interstate commerce. Wow, the government needs to come up with some smoother names for this shit. That is a lot of words for what they're talking about. Simplify it. I
know from what I was listening up on what he was trying to create, wasn't he just trying to make like lab kits for kids? Like back in the day, they had these like, get your own beaker at home lab kit. And he thought that was a great tool for kids to learn because like himself, that's where he kind of started out playing around and messing with science. So I think that whole thing was just a snafu over like his kits going across the border, and they made it sound again worse. Like, oh, he was trying to, move dangerous chemicals. How dare he? Well, he was just trying to get his business going, and it's going to be a hard sell to try and get a lot of parents to just open up with chemicals coming in your house. But
I want to point out something. This is 2003, a year or two earlier. All those rules on interstate transportation of chemicals had just changed and gotten really strict because of 9/11. So all of a sudden, they're able to, maybe the law changed in that time and whatever he was shipping didn't matter until this time. And then all of a sudden he has to take, because of the Patriot Act and what we were so worried about at that time, it just seems really strange that whatever he was shipping wasn't that bad to get him on the terrorist watch list, but it was bad enough to get him arrested. And you don't usually hear about that happening in our country.
True.
For something. I mean, these are 2 small offenses that really don't matter much.
Yeah. And they're getting blown way out of proportion.
Yeah.
Yeah. Nice observation, Christian. Let's see what else you learn. United Nuclear pleaded guilty for 3 criminal counts of introducing into interstate commerce and aiding and abetting the introduction into interstate commerce, banned hazardous substances, In 2007, United Nuclear was fined $7,500 for violating a law prohibiting the sale of chemicals and components used to make illegal fireworks.
I didn't know there was a law against making fireworks.
And I know a lot of people that do that, Christian included. Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, who doesn't like to just go out and light some fireworks off? Come on.
Yeah. So Heather, do you want to like mention some noteworthy?
So these are just, the inner workings of my brain, watching the documentary and reading up on him. Just stuff I found to be interesting.
Open up that brain, Heather. Let us take a look.
Trying to think of where I was at with some of these.
Trying to get in that headspace.
They kept talking about Groom Lake, which is a dry lake, also described as a salt flat in Nevada. It is used to runways of Vanellis Bombing Range Test Site Airport, part of the Area 51 United States Air Force installation.
Do you know what a dry lake is like?
Isn't it like a big crater type thing?
It's like a flat.
Just
Scott
flat,
and I both know because we live by
I've never been to the desert. For anyone listening, like I've never been. Like I've been to the farthest, like Nevada Strip. That's about it. And then, the Vegas Strip, and been to California, like Sacramento, that kind of area.
Yeah,
never been out to the desert anywhere.
They're an amazing thing just with the way they are. So that's
Arizona's one of my bucket list places to go. I want to go and see all the different places. So no, I just thought it was interesting because, like I said, for as much saying like he wasn't a part of this, I feel like for being government land and him knowing so much doesn't make sense. ED&G, formerly known as Edgerton ED&G, formerly known as Edgerton, Gurmhausen, and Gurrier Inc., was a United States national defense contractor and provider of management and technical services. The company was involved in contracting services to the United States government during World War II and conducted weapons research and development during the Cold War era from 1948 and onward. It had close involvement with some of the government's most sensitive technologies. So that's where, he's saying he was formerly employed. Again, interesting. Like that's one that they have no record.
Yeah.
So for the businesses he was in, and then again, which I already stated, Mike Thigpen saying he did work with Lazar at S4. And that's where a lot of people are like, he's making this all up. No one can contest with him besides Knapp, but Thigpen has said it. But then coming back out and trying to get him, I think on the documentary, he wouldn't say anything. So is he being threatened? Is he worried kind of thing?
And I think the answer to that is absolutely 100% yes, probably.
I think he did work there.
Yeah.
I'm not sure he worked in the capacity he says, but I think it's very likely he did work there in some capacity.
Yeah. That can't even be refuted at this point. Like it's pretty, that's common knowledge for sure. He was there.
And that area on Area 51, they did have contractors come in and work.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And they did very different things, anything from building stuff to serving food. They had contractors come in and work.
Yeah.
And they had to sign agreements and not talk about it.
Another interesting thing I thought in the documentary was when you've watched it, right, Scott? I don't know if you have.
I've watched it.
I have not.
When he refers to them calling the aliens the kids.
Yeah, that was interesting.
I was like,
kind of creepy.
Yeah,
but also,
it was really creepy. Like, oh yeah, we just refer to them as the kids.
That would make sense to me though, because I nickname everything or everybody.
Yeah.
It would make sense to be like.
It's just weird listening to this guy talk and then just casually be like, oh yeah, and they're like, what'd you call them? The kids.
And but these
like
guys,
he's seen them or knows. I mean, and he talks about the one count where he walked past a room and he goes, I don't know, maybe it was like an emaciated person sitting there or like a dummy. I only literally saw a glance of it, but it looked like an alien.
Yeah, he's come out and said like I didn't get a good look at it, but to
and
me,
he always
that's
says, he goes, I have no idea. I glanced, it was fast.
Yeah.
Who knows? So interesting. If the documentary is on Netflix called Bob Lazar, Area 51 and the Flying Saucers, if you're wanting to, it's very interesting. Another part in there is within that documentary, you see Bob Lazar talking with Jeremy Corbell. And in the time they're talking about, coming out with this story, coming out the documentary. And the next day, Lazar was raided again by the FBI. And they referenced this conversation that he had with Corbell.
He's being tapped.
So, he's still heavily followed. And I find that very interesting. Like, they're listening. They're waiting for him to slip up or say something. Like, honestly, in a few weeks, if something came out, like after the attention he's had with the documentary and with, going on Rogan. Like if he just came up dead mysteriously, like I would 100% think something happened to him.
And
he's being watched.
I think he's safe because he's released everything.
Yeah, but
you only get killed if you have secrets. Once the secret's out, that brings too much attention. Yeah, I don't think he'll get killed.
Probably not.
He does have a lot of people going by his house and stuff, though, which I feel bad for.
Yeah, I mean, and you can visibly see it. Like whenever he's asked to do interviews or something like that, dude said he gets migraines. He's stressed out. Like he doesn't like talking about this. This isn't something that he searches out. Like I'm going to go tell my story to everyone.
Well,
like,
then you have the skeptic side going and like, oh, well, he's saying that because that's his way of always trying to trip up. Like because like I've heard some people say during Rogan when he was saying, I'm sorry, I just have migraine. Like I can't recall. And they're like, that's what he's pulling out when he doesn't either have a response for it or know what to say. Like he uses that as a crutch to say,
And that would be a smart route to take.
But like I said, I don't see, there's no personal gain he's had from sharing this story. Like it would be different if this made him famous and have money. Then I'd say maybe, he just had an idea and went with it, got all this fame, but he's having people drive by his house. It seems like him and his wife really don't do a lot. They kind of hang in their own home, to keep to themselves, try and stay as low as they can under the radar, because I think this kind of ruined his career, his, reputation.
Yeah. Well, there's just recently a bunch of chatter about things that might support his stories about the U.S. government confirming that they actually have alien technology, and they've had it for a long time.
Absolutely.
Oh yeah, I think when after he went on Rogan and then they came out with the documentary, that's when a lot of this just opened up back to Area 51 and
well, even in the last week or two.
Oh yeah, just constantly since 2021. We started right off with
even 2020. There's speculation. Is this the year?
Yep.
And I've been since way back in during the first time I heard Bob Lazar interviewed, because I'm a long-time coast-to-coast listener.
Yeah.
So I know Bob Lazar from the early days before it was like a great story, and in that community, it was pretty popular. But now even everybody outside of that community knows who he is.
Well, this has been something since the 80s. Like, this is nothing new. He's been saying the same thing since the 80s. And it wasn't until going on Rogan on June 20th, 2019, when Rogan had him on, and all his listeners, millions, because Rogan has such a following, heard that interview. And then that's what started the whole Storm Area 51. And got into that. Mm-hmm. He just reshed that light. And that's where like people are like, well, it didn't get big until this. And I'm like, it was just not a lot of people listened to these topics back then.
Or if you talked about it, you're just nuts.
Yeah, exactly. You're that conspiracy theorist.
Yeah, now conspiracy theory is more mainstream than it used to be.
Yeah, the time is now, people.
That's why we got this podcast going. We're all hip. It's just, I find it interesting. It's nothing that's new. It's just Rogan brought light to it, and it's blown back up. And
what I really want to hear right now is, Christian, you said that you had some like earth-shattering skeptic approach to this, right? Like you were really looking to lean into this. So tell me, because every time we've brought up Bob Lazar in this podcast, you're like, I've got a couple things to say myself, and I'm like, and you've never said what they are.
So like hit us with this.
I'm giving you the floor, man. Let's hear it.
I would say Bob Lazar fits perfectly with one of two things: he's a narcissist, or he's the perfect cover story for, like I said earlier, muddying the waters. He is like the Richard Doty of Area 51.
So the options are narcissist or disinformation?
Yeah, and more disinformation than anything, because I feel that this story through the years has been so crazy that it's, for most of the world, it's unacceptable. And this particular messenger can't bridge that gap, even with the help of someone like George Knapp, who's really good at communicating.
Yeah.
If you really want to discover a place like this and have credible information, you need to have somebody that can deliver the message and back it up and show you this, and this. Yeah. Like Bob Lazar, in that capacity, should have been smart enough to have records himself that he can point to that would put the government into a spot that they cannot deny stuff. And the fact that he can't do that, or as smart as he is, he didn't think about that, gives me pause in trusting him. Because when I listen to him, a lot of times he sounds like a very smart man, but he did a bunch of stupid little things that normally get criminals caught.
Yeah.
And so that gives me a lot of doubt. It's
so
if he was as smart as he was, he would have backup.
Can I just, first of all, as far as like the narcissist thing, for sure. Okay, 100% for sure narcissist. But at the same time, aren't a lot of like people in those positions more narcissistic than others because they view themselves as higher than most because they're scientists or they're super smart or they do this and that. Like, so it's easy to look down on people for sure. I'll give you that. Narcissist. Mm-hmm. But the disinformation, could it be a thing? Yeah, but I don't know. It just doesn't feel like disinformation. It doesn't feel like, which would be a great disinformation campaign if it didn't feel like it.
Yeah.
But I don't know. There's something about this story in particular that it's hard for me to just hop on board being like, yeah, maybe it's disinformation. And even, I feel like you're not even fully sold on that. Like, I feel like you may not like the guy. There's a part of you that believes his story to an extent, right? Or are you fully just, this is disinformation?
At the time he saw some of this stuff, I do not believe that the U.S. government was dumb enough to keep this stuff at Area 51. Because everybody that was anybody in researching or looking into secrets of the government knew about that place. So at the time Bob Lazar would have worked there, the U.S. government would have moved some of this stuff. So that troubles me. It makes more sense when he says he might have seen, a human, but he didn't really get to look at it. It looked like an alien. That kind of makes sense in that facility because they were dealing with, plane crashes and secret projects out there. But at that point in the U.S. government's history, everybody, including the Russians, knew about Area 51. It would be crazy because the Russians were flying over it with their satellites every day to keep anything alien related at that facility at that time.
The Russians were flying satellites over there?
Yes.
To keep the alien stuff?
No, they were every day satellites would go over Area 51 trying to see what they were working on to the point where they had everything underground, or they could only fly their secret projects at night, so those satellites couldn't watch it.
Yeah.
At that point, if the Russians know that this is an ultra-secret facility, and then the rumors are that you got alien technology there, I just don't see the U.S. government keeping it there at that time period.
So for you, that would explain the fact that Lazar has taken friends out to this area on like Wednesdays or something, because he said Wednesdays are when they fly stuff.
Right.
And like seeing those, so it's like
he
inside.
knows stuff's flying.
Yeah.
Because the people knew.
But you think he's like a shill for the government or something.
Well, and some of that stuff happened in Palmdale where you and I grew up.
Yeah.
There were certain things that were at Lockheed during the day being worked on that they would only fly back out of there at night.
Yeah.
Because nobody could see, including satellites, couldn't really see what it was. So that part is spot on. I believe him on that.
You just don't buy that he's just
reverse engineering and doing this job. And
or that he's coming out like saying this stuff on his own.
I mean, I just feel like his accounts, they're not, I mean, I could believe someone having a job reverse engineering alien spacecraft. It's not like he's saying, hey, I high-fived an alien and hung out with them and I saw all these crazy outlandish things.
For the record, saying I believe that too.
He was working within Area 51 doing this job, which I'm sure people are probably trying to reverse engineer a spacecraft. Like,
well, if there's a spacecraft, we're going to reverse engineer it. Yeah, we're going to
be trying to take it apart, learn about it, figure out what the hell we can, use it for a weapon, what we can do with it.
So, I can give you a story that will support this, that the U.S. government has actually done, that with reverse engineering, not with alien technology, but if they're going to do this to at the time, the Soviet Union, if something did fall out of the sky, they would do it in a second because the Soviet Union had this new rocket that they were kind of taking around to a couple places and showing how brilliant their technology was. And they were showing it in Mexico because they were kind of courting Mexico at this time. I think it was the 60s. The U.S. government set it up to where the guard of this facility, because they were driving it on a truck till they could take it back to Russia.
Yeah.
And they had to park it overnight. And so all the people guarding it were in a hotel doing stuff. And they were able to figure out a gap of like 12 hours where it was unguarded. The U.S. government sent in a whole team. They totally took apart this rocket, which was huge, and photographed it all the way down to every nut and bolt, and then put it back together, and nobody knew. Just like a half a night. They took pictures of it. They knew everything about that missile by reverse engineering it within a few hours.
That's
and if you think about how much manpower that takes and to be able to keep it secret up until
in
just
half
recently.
A night, no less. Yeah.
In a foreign country with the Soviet Union military right there.
Yeah.
That's crazy. So if something fell out of the sky, we're reverse engineering it in a second.
So is that, I guess, what you would think these UFO sightings are that people see these days? Would you say that maybe that's reverse engineered, or do you think that's just good old smarts from the U.S. government?
like we're just playing around creating stuff and people just, I saw a UFO, but it's really just the government working on something.
Yeah.
I think at Area 51, those are all government flights, government jets and planes. Because now, where did they get the technology for some of that stealth, the stealth materials that they use on those flights? Where do they get some of the metals? The element Bob Lazar talked about?
115, yeah.
Yes.
Element 115.
That is a very rare element. And I think it only comes from things that are outside of this world.
Yeah. And it wasn't even part of the, elemental system when he was talking about it. So the fact that it is now says something.
And same thing, again, him coming out and saying, element 115. None of us knew that.
From my understanding, the only way we find that element on Earth is in like a meteor or a comet strike. But it is in space. And people are talking about mining it in space. That's how important that element is.
Yeah, so I don't know, man. Heather, where do you land on this? You kind of gave spoilers in the beginning. You full on
I
into
believe
this.
him.
Yeah.
I don't think anyone can come out with that good of a story. And like every time you hear him tell a story over the years, it's the same.
Yeah.
He doesn't waver. That's what gets me. He doesn't waver his story. He stays with the same facts. And like I said, at the end of the day, what does he gain from doing that? Like he has not gained anything good. Yeah. He wishes he would have took it back. And so for being that smart of a guy, I wouldn't see him just spinning a story like I think he did. He is worried. And I think the government did do stuff to try and cover up and make him look bad, because now people don't believe him. Did he go to MIT? No, there's no trace. Can't find his birth certificate, like that stuff. So I just find it interesting. And I think.
Does he seem like the type of guy that would lie about going to MIT? Because I think he does. And that's part of the problem there. And I think even people that support him are like, yeah, he does seem like...
Who just casually can go with that, though? Like, that's just like me saying, like, starting tomorrow, I'm going to tell people I went to Harvard. Buy a Harvard sweatshirt, start walking around in it. Oh, yeah, I went to Harvard, hung out in the hall, this.
Maybe.
And just start learning stuff and go with it. Like, there's really people that spend that much time. Because to me, like, lies are exhausting. And trying to keep up with it and keep your story consistent. And
there are people that do that.
But I mean, that's where we get narcissists and, compulsive liars. But
that's part of the problem with this story is he is the type of person that would lie to us about that. And that would undermine anything later on. Even if he's telling the truth, there's always going to be doubt because he did this over here. And that's the problem with some of these messengers.
Yeah.
Is the messengers are the ones that can be torn down easily. There's a lot coming out about alien technology lately. So there's a good chance we could be in a few months, couple years coming back and saying, Christian, you should retract your statement on Bob Lazar. And I'm fine with that.
Yeah. So do you want to go ahead and just take this moment to do it now?
I will
Save
not,
some time?
because that's too easy. We need the evidence, especially with something that would change the world like this. We need more evidence and we need to understand.
Yeah.
I think the American people would be fine. At first they'd be mad, but if they found out their government lied to them, most of them would be fine because there's reason to lie about this if we're trying to keep it away from our enemies.
Yeah.
That's our government protecting us because we already see where we're at with nuclear weapons. So you get better technology than that. How close to destruction are we going to get by our enemies, quote unquote enemies, having this technology? So I see why they would hide it if it did happen.
But that's completely removing the possibility that a threat of extraterrestrial life could bring people together on the Earth, or supposedly do that.
And it could. But if, say, this isn't happening tomorrow, and you're the United States, you better keep it from the Soviet Union, because the Soviet Union might use that information you got against you. They will take it like they took the plans for the nuclear weapon that were ultra top secret at the time. They still ended up with them, and they were our plans. So if there is alien technology and we have it if we have it somewhere, the Russians are going to get that information, or they're going to try to get it at all cost. And it's hard when a country has that strong of a focus like United States or Russia to hide that forever.
But that's what I'm saying is you don't think that the Russians would see that and their first response would be like, we need to get this from the Americans.
Right. And they would.
Instead of, oh shit, there's aliens out there. We got to join forces with our enemies as common people. Like that would show the depravity of humanity at that point where it's just like.
But there's no proof aliens are dangerous to us. There is proof that our enemies are. There's proof that Russia wants to weaken us and that we want to weaken Russia.
Yeah.
There is proof of that. There's no proof that aliens are dangerous to us.
There's no proof, but there's stories of abduction and probes.
But there's also a lot of stories about the great advances they would bring to our society and how it would make us look past the little things that we let divide us.
Yeah.
I think there's, the abduction stories are scary, but when you really think about what an alien civilization could bring us in the right way of knowledge, and the fact that most advanced societies are less warful than not advanced. The more advanced you get, the less you want to have a war.
But that could also start with two people coming together over common ground. It doesn't, like, in order for that advance to get to that point, don't people have to first be at peace? Don't they first have to shake hands with their enemies, be like, hey, we're all people, we can get over this, we can get through this together, sing kumbaya, all that stuff, and then you advance together? Isn't that the way that would progress?
I think with humans, it would have to be something that would force them to do that, because you see humans come together around catastrophes a lot. The only way they're going to actually come together is if they believe deep down that they won't survive unless they do come together. Yeah. And I think sometimes that's why it would take something really drastic to get that peace, that an alien civilization showing up would probably just instantly create it, at least amongst humans. Maybe. Whether that civilization was going to destroy us or help us, a lot of things would just stop, because it wouldn't be Russia and the US and China.
Yeah.
It'd be like, what do we have to do to protect this world? Or what do we need to focus on to protect this world?
And what do you guys think about people like George Knapp and Jeremy Corbell, who have dedicated their whole work to Lazar? Like,
George Knapp has made a decent living.
So you think he's just like, hey, I'm just making the money train off him. I'm going to say I believe him with all of it just to keep this going?
No, I don't. I'm saying that there is a financial incentive, but I'm not assuming that George Knapp is doing it just because of the money. That's his job. And maybe he found a story because he's basically a reporter or in that kind of business.
But he was a trusted reporter in Vegas during that time.
He was known, and he was well known, and he from day one was like, no, I believe this guy, and this is his story, and get it out there. And
I think
when you see him on a documentary, there's a really great actor, but I feel like he truly does believe Bob.
You see the wonder in
and the conviction, and same with like Jeremy Corbell. Like, guy is a bit.
I listen to George.
Much.
I've listened to him for years, and I'm not saying that he doesn't believe him. I feel comfortable that George Knapp is on that train and believes it.
Yeah.
But to look at it properly, that is also how he makes his money, which is a fair question. That's a question we should always ask when people deliver.
What's their gain in it?
Right.
Yeah.
And you're like, okay, this is his job too. Do I believe what he's saying? Yeah. That's fine. That little bit of skeptical side where you're like, okay, he makes money off this is healthy to have, because then you see things or discard things that matter or don't matter easily, instead of just jumping on with everything that George Knapp says, because you realize where he's coming from. You're like, okay, I'm going to use my mind a little bit more on this one, which if you still believe the stuff at the end of it, you're still in a healthier spot by having those thoughts. I'm fine with George Knapp. I believe he's passionate. I believe he believes in the message he delivers, and it's not a bad message. Mm-hmm. Most of the time, he's got a really positive outlook on the world, and he delivers that. So I don't think he's a bad guy. I don't think he's manipulating us. I just think it's like, I'm not a fan of something about Lazar feels really off to me. And so maybe my biggest complaint or skepticism is I don't get the right feeling from him. So I don't trust what he says. Not that he's wrong on some things. Or he hasn't accidentally hit on the truth.
It's just a vibe you're getting.
Yeah, it's a vibe.
Even Rogan, when you watch back to like his first one with him, he seemed a little skeptical when he first went in. He kept kind of a, even keel, wasn't much on what he thought. By the end of it, I felt like he was like, damn, I believe you. And then he has him back on. And I just feel like the more and more I follow Rogan or listen to his episodes, like he does 100% believe Bob Lazar.
It's a great story. And I think there's going to be parts of it that are true. I don't know if we'll ever find out if Bob Lazar was actually there.
So can we say that you think there's a lot of it that is true, just not everything he says is true?
I don't believe he had as much of a role.
As he says.
Yeah.
You think he was just like the background guy?
I think he might have been around. He saw things, and he's very smart. So, and the things he looks into, when he saw something, he knew exactly what it was.
Yeah.
And I think we all have our places. Like, I'm such a nerd about some things that I'm reading and stuff. And I've probably talked Scott's ear off about different TV shows where I can see something, but I'm so familiar with it. I know exactly what that is because that's what I read and study. And I think that's him. He is a smart guy. He has the intellect.
If you say anything with confidence,
you
can spin a story.
You compared yourself to a narcissist?
No, I'm saying we all have that that area where we are so intuitively into it that you can make connections. Or like if you, in this case, he's walking down a hallway.
Yes.
In a secret facility. He glances over and sees something that everybody else thinks they won't know what that is. But he understands it because his brain is able to know what everybody's working on and what this technology really is, when everybody else just thinks it's nothing.
Yeah.
He's like, oh my gosh, I know what kind of element they need for that technology. And that is the only element that'll work for it.
Yeah.
None of the rest of us would know that, but he has studied the stuff that would, the minute he saw it, he could put 2 and 2 together. He doesn't have to necessarily be working on it, but he's still smart enough to know what the government was doing just by a glance.
True. Yeah. So I guess, Heather kind of asked you if, you believe it, and you kind of danced around it.
Which I always do.
A bit. So I guess a fair assessment, I'm going to break this down for the people listening at home. A fair assessment is that you are 100% on board with everything Bob Lazar says. You believe him. You absolutely adore the guy. And there's really no question in your mind about what he speaks, because you know it in your heart of hearts to be truth. Would you consider that to be a fair assessment, a accurate description of your feelings on the subject?
I think on some levels, some people might think that's a fair assessment.
No, I was asking if that's what you...
I don't believe him. I don't trust him at all.
We're going to break you down. Heather, ask him again.
No, it's not going to work. I believe that there's a lot of things coming out in the last year or so.
Yeah.
Ask me a year or two from now, because there's a lot of information coming out that, if true, is going to take us to another level of understanding of the world around us.
And again, I think with our first roundtable episode and topics like these, the more we're having these stories come out in the trending news, if there's something that's crazy comes out about a Lazar 6 months from now, a year, we're going to dive right back into this.
Yeah.
And be like, hey, you guys go listen to this episode. We're going to continue off. So, like you said, it's a thing that keeps developing. It's not really going anywhere in the news that might hear more.
And I'm sure everybody wants to listen to an episode 6 months to a year from now and listen to
Christian get told he's wrong.
Listen to you dancing around
have you guys
somehow,
say, I told you so.
Yeah.
And me being like, yes.
Oh, we're going to have t-shirts made for the event.
Yeah, I really have to
win.
Charter this whole parade, like a route through the city, just flyers, symbols, everyone clashing, cheering. It's going to be a whole production.
Week. And I'm perfectly fine with having a parade for the one time in my life that I'm wrong.
One time. He's like, only one time it's going to happen. You guys are going to win. So I'm still going to hope that we find the big furry guy and change his mind, because
I think that's a parade I can get on board with, because I'll celebrate too. I'm like, whoo, I finally made the mortals. No, I'm just joking.
Classic. Yeah. I don't know. Like we've talked about doing this episode for a while, and it's been kind of on the back burner. It's just always been, something else will come up, or we do different topics and we write more episodes. And it's like, oh, let's do this one. But I'm glad this one, it flowed really well. And it was a topic that I think a lot of people are actually more familiar with because it's so popular.
Yes.
Because it's been on and off throughout, the years.
Well, Rogan, the documentary, bringing light to a lot of it. So it's more in the news, but I think where Scott's kind of going with this, like, we like to try and space it out. You guys don't want to hear 5 episodes about UFOs and space things. So like when we wrote this, we'd just done the one about High Mashed, and we were like, well, let's give it a few spaces. So we just kind of try and mix it up. I know you guys don't want to hear like 10 episodes on different entities in a row. So we'll try and bring a weird thing like Britney in, or something that's going else in the news.
And for sure, everyone wants to hear about weird entities. And if they don't, then I don't know, I guess maybe I'm just alone in the universe after all. Okay.
Try and give it a good space. I know, like, even Beautiful Podcast does that. They were like, we've done like 5 entities. Let's switch it up now to this. We just try and keep it freaky and deaky. We're just weird over here and have a lot of things that interest us.
Strange entity. Did you say strange entities or weird?
Both.
It could be either.
Strange and weird.
Do you ever think if you just took a moment to get to know the entity, they wouldn't be a stranger anymore?
Back on lizard people again,
I was thinking just a crawler popped into my head, and I don't want to freaking know those things. Heck to the no.
When you get to know their personality, maybe you get past the physical characteristics.
Okay, maybe
like
I'll hang out with the crawler if it can put some clothes on. Some pale, emaciated, creepy little naked dude hang in the room. Like, hey, bro, put a sweater on. Maybe we'll have a conversation.
That's fair, because entities should understand we have a different culture where in our culture you're supposed to wear clothes when you're talking to a friend.
Stop growling at me and making a clicking noise. It's a little rude.
I simply don't know the answer to everything, Christian. I'm sorry. Do I sometimes, paint these entities in a bad light? I do. Yeah.
I think anything that lets out a predator type clicking noise and growls at you, it's going to give off a bad vibe.
Yeah.
So many times I'm walking in the woods and like, oh, hey buddy, what you doing? Like
maybe
Disney character busts out in song with the thing.
Yeah. Maybe he just needs somebody to care about him.
Should I play some sentimental piano while you go down this one, or
Somebody's probably like, this skeptic is kind of a hippie. I don't understand this.
it's all peace and love, man? Yeah. No, Christian just likes derailing things without their thoughts. I do the same thing. I ask you almost every episode. I'm like, so is it verifiable then that you are on board with this? And almost every time, well, I'm going to go ahead and correct that. Every single time, he says no, if you can believe it. So, yeah.
It's kind of like Will.
A little bit.
But here, like,
I know nothing weird happens, but I totally saw a UFO. But it all makes sense, and it's all totally.
But by working so hard to convince me, you are actually able to gain more knowledge into your beliefs, and you're able to better judge what is real and what is not. Because when you're teaching, you learn the most. So when you're trying to teach me about this stuff, you're learning more about the subject than you ever would have before.
Sounds like something Bob Lazar would say, man.
Yeah.
That's some narcissistic shit.
Sounds like getting a little narcissistic in the room.
Or Bob Ross would say
Narcissists
it.
know them the best.
There you go.
He's over here. He's just a narcissist because I am one.
Because you understand.
Oh my God.
Just kidding. If you meet Christian, he's not a narcissist.
Yeah.
He's a good guy.
Thank you.
We
Do
all
I have
like
to put
him.
in another clip correcting something you've said, Christian? You are really bringing this podcast down. It's unacceptable. You guys remember what I put into the Bohemian Grove and how much you loved it, right? Guys, we do a lot of work here, so if they don't remember, go easy on them. It was only
I'm going to be completely
a
honest.
couple episodes
When you
ago.
guys listen to the episodes, we are just Christian and myself. Scott listens to them like 500 times editing. Probably gets really old, but I'm just as excited for Thursdays as you guys are. I drop my kids off at school, put the podcast right on and listen to it.
Yeah.
So there are times where I forget, 4 weeks out, and then we listen to it and I start laughing like, oh yeah, hey.
And for the record, Bohemian Grove hasn't dropped yet.
No, so
we're
stay
recording
tuned.
before that
Yes.
dropped. But you guys are probably maybe I don't know. Like, as they just said, they don't listen to things before it airs. And so it was 100% on me what may or may not have been dropped into that episode. So I don't know your guys' reactions to what was added into that episode just yet. But I have a feeling you guys aren't going to appreciate it nearly as much as I did.
Scott
I think you might
foresees
be
our group text blowing up because
It's
I always love listening on Thursdays and then blowing up our group text, different things we hear and we all point out.
There are certain things I will talk, like, I think this at the beginning of this episode is a good example. Sometimes I will just rant about stuff just to see what Scott does with it later.
Yeah.
It's like,
It's a real treat.
I'm just going to keep going.
Poking the bear over here. He's like,
and it's not always even poking the bear, but sometimes I get rolling and then I'm like, this is to me, it's funny. It may not be funny to anybody else, but then I want to see what Scott does with it because he makes it funnier.
And the best part of me being behind the scenes is I think people forget that this is Scott's father-in-law. So it makes it even better because it's literally his father-in-law who he has to deal with on a daily.
So
get to try and agitate him. So
I get to roast him every once in a while.
Fun family dynamic here.
Yeah. But what was the name of that award we had earlier today?
The Nappy?
Yeah. Scott gets Freaky Deaky's first Nappy Award from us for his editing and sound skills.
You guys should probably wait to say that until Bohemian Grove comes out. Okay. Like, do you guys? Okay. Are you gonna offend me? No. Well, here's the thing. Okay. Do you remember what I had to tweak in or why I pled my case for Bohemian Grove? What you said, and then you guys were like, "No, you should take that. You should take that." And I was like,
"Yes, I remember. It was controversial. We were worried."
Yeah. You don't remember it, Christian?
It was
you said.
We said at first, take
something.
it out completely.
Yeah.
And then when we went inside before we left after recording, Scott was like, "Hear me out. Will you be mad if I put this in?" But I'm going to.
I said, "Let me leave the joke in, and I'll input a little of my own clip in there."
Was that the joke I was really worried about being sexist?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. And so, okay. That's what I'm saying is I have a very particular sense of humor and I have a very particular way that I word things. And most people that I know that hear these aren't really on board with it. They're like, that's, pretty messed up. You shouldn't have done that. So I'm saying this on the podcast that it was 100% me. And if you guys are upset about it, first of all, don't fucking care. Number two, like if you're upset about it, it was me. Like I was the one to add that in. Okay. So now you guys are even more nervous. You're going to stay nervous for the next 2 weeks until Bohemian Grove.
I was about to say,
drops.
how long do we have to wait for this one to come out?
Yeah.
And the funny thing is, these are all in the cloud. So, like, we could technically go in and
you could go
listen,
to
but
it right
I
now.
don't. Like, my husband always asks me before they come out, he's like, have you listened? Did you? And I'm like, no, I don't, because it's like Christmas. I want to wait and have the surprise.
So what you're trying to do is save face because you're like, I might offend you really bad.
No, I was wondering because I recorded it in like one shot. I just sat there and I was like, yeah, that's what I'm going to say. And the whole point of saying all of that was to say that you're not a misogynist, you're not sexist, you're like one of the most feminist people that I know, including all the women that I know. Okay. So, but the way that I worded it is in classic me fashion of not really giving a fuck what people feel about certain things. And that's how I handled it. So that's 100% on me. If, for whatever reason, all 15 of our listeners decide to gather around pitchforks and torches outside and be like, cancel Scott. Whatever, cancel me. I'll start another podcast called the Deaky Freaky, and I'll be competition. All right.
Well, we're all human, and we like to joke and have fun. And if you can't handle it, then
I was
kick on over to the next podcast.
I was essentially making light of how, if you get offended by something like that, exactly how sensitive you have to be be that offended by something like that when you know clearly by context alone that it was a slip of the tongue, is whatever.
Yeah.
And so I'm making fun of people that get offended by stuff like that.
Yeah. No.
So if you haven't heard Bohemian Grove, now's your chance to go back and check it out. These people will be on board with you. These people, my co-hosts will be. You guys are just people in this room. No,
see how it goes. Now we're just people.
I'm gonna start doing
Welcome to Scott's show. We're just the people here.
Yeah, Scott and two people.
Like when those podcasts are like music and this by this person. What if I did that like a 4-minute credits and just after every single title, Scott Walker. Yeah, that's a narcissist, and I'm not that guy. Yeah, this is a group effort.
Scott's
We are a team.
Freaky Deaky.
This whole conversation, I've still been stuck on you saying we only have 15 listeners.
Oh,
have some confidence in
here's the
thing.
We are growing. It's going up. It's hilarious for me to say that only my mom is the listener because I don't know. Again, weird sense of humor.
We joke, but I think it honestly, like the pressure we feel because we don't want to we're all busy and have jobs and lives, and this started out as a hobby, and it's fun seeing it get a little bigger. We're not trying to get fame or fortune or money. It's just. Well, it's fun seeing that it's actually going somewhere. Is what I'm trying to get at it.
Yeah, I'd
clearly,
like to quit my job at some point.
Clearly, you guys know I want to be famous.
Yeah.
Funny story. My 30th birthday was last weekend, and my mom, just being the extra supporting mother she is, saved all of my schoolwork over the years and had it like around the room so everyone could come see it at my birthday party. And there was a Martin Luther King picture that I drew, and it started out, I have a dream. And I love it because I just think 7-year-old Heather, like there was other kids out there like, world peace. Mm-hmm. I want to do great things. Mine said, I have a dream to be famous. It all makes sense now.
I wanted to play on the LA Dodgers.
So I wanted to be famous. And that was my thoughts on, Dr. King's great speech. I was worried about my fame. So funny little thing over here. Yeah. I'm going to be famous and have a podcast. Totally my, so no, that was just funny. But no, it's fun to see the interaction we're getting. It's fun to see the numbers climbing, having people just write in and send emails, make comments. It makes our day. Like Seth leaving his video was really cool. I've seen the review.
It's just fun interacting with people.
It is. And it's people that are these topics we don't talk with a lot of, besides Christian and Scott. I don't talk about these topics with anyone else, really.
We spent a lot of time talking about these things before we even started. We would just be sitting around talking about it. When one day, I don't even know how it came up, but Scott mentioned a podcast, and I think I said, I'll do a podcast with you.
Yeah.
And then it just rolled right then. Right when I said that, it was like, I think we were basically rolling within a couple weeks of trying to set it up.
Everything happened really fast. Even from when I literally just text Scott like, hey, I like this and I have free time. I'll look for stuff. I had no intention of being on audio, being a part of this. This was your guys' thing. And then like the next day I'm like, Scott added me to a group chat and he's like, no, you're in. Like, this is it.
Yeah. It's all
like the interaction of of these subjects is just fun. And to imagine, through the years, I've sat with many people and talked about these subjects. Yeah. And these are fun subjects, even if I am skeptical about a lot of them. It's fun to expand your mind in a way of the possibilities there could be.
Oh, yeah. It's 2021. Like, after dealing with pandemic and then now how everything is going, like I tell everyone, I'm like, at the end of the day, if this is just me talking with my friends, spewing out nonsense, that's what it is. And it's just fun to do. And we appreciate the support, the follows, the, leaving a review, any of that kind of stuff. It just helps us grow. And if you want to keep hearing us, it's
just fun to do.
It is.
Yeah. Even when I ramble.
Podcasts are cool.
Yeah.
They are. We're hip. Yeah. So to close this out,
for the first time, this is the first closeout, right?
This is the first one.
Yeah.
There'll be a couple more. I'm going to see if I can cover it all. Follow along on social media. We got Instagram, TikTok, Twitter at Freaky Deaky Pod, and then Facebook is the Freaky Deaky Podcast. Email address if you got an experience or you got some thoughts on Lazar yourself, shoot it over to thegang@thefreakydeaky.com. And I want to give a shout out to Seth. Heather kind of touched on that earlier, and I meant to. I'm a space cadet for the record. He's got a YouTube channel. He's a customer / YouTube beard product reviewer. Found out about the podcast because I, spoiler alert, send postcards and stickers to my customers, and so he's been really supportive about it. He's been sharing around. He did a video review on some products and also gave a shout out to the podcast. So I want to give him a shout out right back. It is Seth, and he's got a YouTube channel. It is Iowa Crafted Beard. So look him up, subscribe to that, and check out that video. It was really well done. I told the dude, I was like, man, your voice is smooth as butter, my dude. You should be on radio yourself.
I know. And he also has good Instagram
voice
to follow. And so we've been, I even started following that one and everything on his YouTube. And good stuff. Appreciate the love.
Today's MVP was changed from George Knapp to Seth.
Yes.
I agree with that.
Yeah.
We all agree on one thing.
Second closeout.
Nope. That's it. Outro music, go.